Pokemon is back at it again with another Pokemon League battle deck. This time it's a level 3 featuring Gardevoir EX, and Gardevoir is super popular, so if you're thinking about playing the Pokemon TCG and you like Gardevoir, this is definitely a deck you're going to want to check out. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Christian. I'm currently ranked 68 in Canada at the time of recording, and I am fresh off of 2 back-to-back tournament wins for League challenges, trying to go for a third one tomorrow. And one last thing, this project was actually provided by the homies over at Comfy Hobbies, my sponsor for my competitive season this year, and we're actually going to be giving away this entire 60 card deck. So to enter the giveaway, there are 4 different ways in total that you can enter: once on this YouTube video, once on a YouTube community post, once on Twitter, and once on Instagram. In this particular video, just hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you're going to do with this Gardevoir deck if you end up winning it. That said, if you guys want to support the channel, the best way to do so is by buying cards in the description down below, especially from Comfy Hobbies. If you guys use code SneakerTalk, you'll save 5% off at comfyhobbies.com, and at my eBay store linked down below too. I'm just gonna cut to the chase right now. This deck is not a deck I would recommend for players who've already been playing the game for quite some time. This deck and these kind of prepackaged decks are mainly meant for newer players or completely new players or casual players who want to start building a meta deck for the first time. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of the cards they include for these decks, the value doesn't necessarily equate to close of what the retail price is for these boxes. You're really paying for the convenience factor of getting all these 60 cards in one very convenient package. Otherwise, it is almost always better to buy cards as singles from your local game shops. The really good thing about these decks is that it does make the game way more accessible. Sometimes stores don't have a lot of these cards available for sale. Sometimes you just don't have access to a local game shop. Maybe you have a Walmart or a Target or a big box store that has these way more accessible. Sometimes these go on sale, but it's not too often. These decks are meant for more of the casual scene, not so much the players who've been playing the game for a while. Here's a look at the back. You get a preview of everything that is to come. I'm a huge fan of these kind of decks because growing up, my parents would always buy me starter decks instead of like booster packs and stuff like that, because they assumed I'd get more value out of these decks, and I really did. So I really enjoyed that. Let's get this box out of the way. We have a poison and burn marker. Not something that really comes up for this particular deck, but they always give them in all of these kind of starter decks. We also got this right here, a pamphlet. Now the pamphlet's actually pretty useful, especially if you want to open this deck up in the car and do some reading for fun, like how you would buy video games and read the back of the packaging all the time. Here's a preview of or a summary of what to expect from the Gardevoir EX League battle deck, and then on the very back it's going to show you a bunch of cards that they would recommend you buy to upgrade the deck in one way or another. Buddy Poffin is one of them. We also have Tulip. We also have Prime Catcher. Funny thing is, this Prime Catcher right here is like 1.5 times the cost of this actual product we're opening up right now, but that's because of how good Prime Catcher is. We have this nice little Gardevoir box right here, and if we're gonna just open this up without damage, I feel like I'm gonna break it. Oh my gosh. Can I do this without breaking it? Oh, there we go. There we go. Ooh, wow, look at that. So I expect some dice in here. Ooh, yes, very nice. Oh, wow, these dice are nice. These are nice dice. Let me take it out of the packaging. That looks really cool. This might be one of my favorite dice that Pokemon has done, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. That's awesome. Then you also got the damage counters right here. Next up, we have the code card right here, which will give you the 60 card deck in the online game. We're going to also include this too in the giveaway for the person who wins the 60 card deck. We also have the 60 card deck, or in this case, not 60 card deck, but 54 card deck, because they took out the holos. So we're going to take a look at the cool holos first. First, we have Gardevoir EX, a psychic type attacker that's stage 2. It has the ability Psychic Embrace and the attack Miracle Force. Psychic Embrace is one of the best abilities in the game, getting to accelerate your energies from your discard pile onto your Pokemon for the cost of 2 damage counters for each energy. Now, when you combine this Gardevoir EX with the ability of Curlia with Refinement, you get a very strong deck. So you don't normally attack with Gardevoir EX, or at least you didn't always used to attack with a Gardevoir EX, but sometimes you have to close out some games and swing for that 190. But usually your Gardevoir is going to remain on the bench, just powering up your single prize attackers and letting them wreak havoc onto your opponent. So we got Gardevoir EX, not 1 copy, not 2 copies, but 3 copies of Gardevoir EX to really ensure that you are getting to play the game. Next up, we have a copy of Mew EX. Mew EX is very strong. This is one of those Pokemon that can fit into a lot of different decks. And so if you do buy this deck, it is nice to have these kind of cards that can be versatile enough to fit into other types of decks out there. So you're not only locked into using it for Gardevoir. It's definitely one of those really good free retreat Pokemon that have a really good ability called Restart. It says once during your turn you may draw cards until you have 3 in your hand. And then you have Genome Hacking, so you get to choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it. Very easy to get that 3 attack cost with the help of Gardevoir. Put 6 damage counters in total onto your Mew EX and you can start taking your opponent's attacks. We got Lumineon V. Lumineon V is a staple card for many decks in the Pokemon trading card game because of its ability Luminous Sign. When you play this card from your hand onto your bench, you get to grab a supporter from your deck and add it to your hand. Maybe you need a boss's orders to gust up a Pokemon and attack a very important Pokemon. You can do that. Or maybe you need to disrupt your opponent's hand and maybe draw some cards. You can play Lumineon and search out an Iono and play that. This card is really strong in the trading card game. Now it has a couple of downsides. The first one being if you do start it, the ability is obviously not active because it only goes in effect from your hand to the bench. So starting it is a problem, along with also just having it on your bench in general. It is a 2-prize Pokemon because it is a V, so it is a 2-prize liability. So you're going to try and take out your opponent quick so they can't knock this out, or maybe use cards like Collapse Stadium or Professor's Tour Scenario to remove this from your bench. That way you can take advantage of the Luminous Sign ability, but also remove it from being a 2-prize liability. And then the other card, which is probably one of the best cards in the Pokemon trading card game ever since its release, we got a Radiant Greninja. Wow, this card is absolutely gorgeous. I'm never going to get tired of the way that glimmer hits the card and how shiny it looks. Oh, just so nice. Now this card has perfect synergy with the Pokemon Gardevoir EX, and that's because you are accelerating psychic energy to your Pokemon, and Radiant Greninja says you can just discard a energy from your hand to draw 2 cards. So you're helping prepare your future Pokemon with the ability for Gardevoir, but also your draw engine in Greninja is really useful. So these two have a great synergy. Now I know what you might be thinking if you are new. It has water as its attack cost, and this deck only has psychic. Same thing goes for Lumineon. These are water Pokemon. These are known as support Pokemon. So in some cases, these particular decks, for example, you're not going to be attacking with these Pokemon ever. You're just simply using them for their very handy abilities. And now we're going to take a look at the rest of the cards of this deck and see if they actually have it in order. Because I think they always had it mixed up, which is really annoying for making these kind of videos. But let's see if they're in order or if they're mixed up. And if not, I'll have to put them in order. Oh, okay. So it looks like they listened to us. There is some order here, so let's get these in order and talk about these cards properly. Here is the 60 card deck all together, and we'll just go through it all one by one and quickly talk about some of the cards depending on the nature of them, how important they are for this deck, and if you might want to take them out. So we have all the cool holo cards that we looked at earlier, so we're not gonna have to go through those again. So we got Cresselia right here. It has the Moon Glow reverse attack. Now this card is very strong and annoying as well. This card is very strong and very annoying if you can do something like boss stall your opponent and bring in a Pokemon that is harder for them to retreat out of. It pairs very well with Gardevoir, so you just load up your Pokemon on your side of the field, inflict damage on them, and then you use the attack Moonglow Reverse to move those damage counters to your opponent. Next up, we have Drifloon at 3 copies. Drifloon is one of the best attackers for this deck, and it has amazing synergy with other tool cards that you might want to play in this deck, like Hero's Cape or Luxurious Cape, that basically increase the health points of Drifloon and other Pokemon. That way you can do more damage. The attack you're using for this Pokemon is Balloon Blast. This attack does 30 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon, so it can scale to some pretty high damage numbers out there. Next up, we got Ralts. Now there are quite a few different copies of Ralts in the game right now. I'll have on screen the other copies of Ralts that people play for Gardevoir decks, but this particular deck ran with 4 copies of Ralts, and this is the Ralts from Silver Tempest with the attack Memory Skip. Now this Ralts is 60 HP. The other more popular Ralts that a lot of decks will play is the 70 HP Ralts with the attack Teleportation Burst, I believe, which does 10 damage and it retreats to your bench. This Pokemon here has the attack Memory Skip. For 1 psychic energy, it does 10 damage, and it locks your opponent out of using a particular attack on their active Pokemon. So this is insanely strong against certain Pokemon that only have one attack. So they can't attack with that Pokemon unless, say, it leaves the active and then comes back into it. So very handy. However, it being 60 HP is very scary. It is quite low. And so say if you have 2 of these 60 HP relics on the bench and you don't have a Jirachi to protect yourself from those Sableyes, then Sableye can take a double knockout on Ralts by putting 6 damage counters on each of them. So we have 4 copies of Ralts. Ideally, you want them to evolve as quick as possible to this card right here, Kirlia from Silver Tempest, and we have 4 copies of this Kirlia. This card is the, I want to say, probably the MVP, the most valuable card in this deck in terms of playing. It has the ability Refinement, which says you must discard a card from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 2 cards. So basically, it's the same kind of ability as the Radiant Greninja here that I showed you guys earlier. However, Greninja is a rulebox Pokemon, so it was also turned off by Path of the Peak at one point. This is for discarding an energy to draw 2. Kirlia says you can discard any card in your hand. So basically, the main premise of this deck is you're going to use Refinement to refine your deck and basically throw away all the garbage cards, the cards you don't really need to win the game, or just more psychic energies into your discard pile so you draw the good cards. And then you keep using Refinement every single turn, once per turn, once per Kirlia, and then you just get to get in a very strong board state. You're never going to attack with Kirlia, so just do keep that in mind. It has the attack Slap, but you really just play it for the ability. And of course, if you're going to evolve into your Gardevoir that turn, make sure you use Refinement before you evolve into Gardevoir. And the amount of times I've seen players get the Gardevoir off of Refinement and then evolve into it is really high. 4 copies of Kirlia. Next up, we got some Disruption. We got Iono. Iono is one of the best cards in the game. We have 4 copies of Iono. Pretty much every Gardevoir deck plays 4. I would not take these out. These are super handy. So yeah, we got 4 copies of Iono. This card lets you draw a card for each prize card you have, and your opponent also will draw cards for each prize card they have. And you send your hand to the bottom of your deck. So you'll see those cards later and draw into them later with the Refinement. So we have 4 copies of Iono. Next up, we have 3 copies of Professor's Research. Professor's Research is a staple for many decks out there. Discard your hand and draw 7 is very powerful, and in this game of Pokemon, the more cards you draw, the higher level, the more you're gonna get to play the game, and you know, you get to see the cards you want to see. If you're gonna have to pick between Iono and Professor's Research on that turn, just be mindful that when you use Research, those resources in your hand are gonna get discarded. Iono will protect them and put them at the bottom of your deck. Arven is very good for Gardevoir decks. At a higher competitive level, I don't know if this deck has it. Actually, I'll just do a quick rundown. Yeah, so this deck doesn't have it, but Evolution TM is a very popular card for Gardevoir decks out there, and you can attack with it and evolve 2 of your Pokemon on the bench. Typically, you'll attach it to a random, just whatever Pokemon you want in the active, and then evolve your Ralts into Kirlias. Arven is a card that allows you to get 1 item and 1 tool card from your deck and add it to your hand. So in this particular case, because it is a starter deck, they're not going to go for some crazy, super meta plays. The tools that they really want you to grab basically are the 3 Bravery Charms that they included. And these are the only tools they included for this deck. So you're always grabbing Bravery Charm, which gives you plus 50 HP to your basic Pokemon. So it's going to play very well if you combine it with your attackers in the deck like Drifloon, and there's other Pokemon out there that can take advantage of this tool, like Screamtail is another one. Some cards you might want to replace these with is the Ace-Spec Hero's Cape or Luxurious Cape. Those are 2 very good capes to add to this deck to increase those HP numbers, and it allows your Drifloon and your Screamtail, if you were to play Screamtail, to hit higher numbers. So very useful card. I would recommend putting an Evo TM or 2 into this deck because Arven will search it out. It also grabs you an item, so that item card could be something useful like a Nest Ball to help you set up, or it could be an Ultra Ball to help you get your Gardevoir out, or of course the rare candies or super, there's a lot of great items in this deck. Arven's known as one of the best cards in the game for a reason. Next up, we got 2 copies of Boss's Orders. Boss's Orders is very strong as well. Just being able to pick which Pokemon you're going to attack, or pick which Pokemon you want to put into the active and attack around. 2 copies of Boss's Orders, another card that goes into pretty much every single deck in the game. Next up, we have Jacques. Search your deck for up to 2 evolution Pokemon and reveal them. So just 1 copy of Jacques, you're probably going to grab 2 Kirlias or one Kirlia, one Gardevoir. Just helps with consistency. This isn't a card that sees too much play in actual Gardevoir decks. Next up we got Artisan. Artisan is very, very important for this deck. You really want to set up your Ralts and get as many Kirlias as you can onto the board. So Artisan lets you pick one non-rule box Pokemon, meaning any non-2-price Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box that isn't rating Greninja, because this is a rule box that says only one of these rating Pokemon can be in your deck. So Artisan will basically let you get your Ralts or your other Pokemon like you want to attack with on demand once per turn. Do keep in mind your opponent will get to use it as well. Next up we got 4 copies of Nest Ball for maximum consistency. It's always good to play the game and grab the exact Pokemon you want, and Nest Ball allows you to do just that. 4 copies of Ultra Ball for some more consistency. Really useful to discard cards like Psychic Energy with Ultra Ball. That way you can, use Gardevoir EX to turbocharge those energies onto your Pokemon quicker. Next up we got 3 copies of Rare Candy. A surprising amount of rare candies, but yeah, it is always good because sometimes you can just go Ralts into Gardevoir EX, and that is a very, very strong play, and your little Ralts is now swinging for 190 with the help of being evolved into Gardevoir out of the blue. So very handy. Another key target for cards like Arven in this deck. So we got 3 copies of Rare Candy. If you don't need to evolve with Rare Candy, you don't need to. Like, you can just use this as refinement fodder and use your Kirlias to discard it and draw 2. Next up we got Super Rod. Super Rod at 1 copy is a little sketchy. I'd probably recommend 2 or 3 just because this deck does go through a lot of cards pretty quickly with Kirlia, refining things, or if you lose key attackers or just key Pokemon have to get refined so you can draw more cards. Super Rod allows you to bring them back. There's a lot of times where you can do a play where you like Super Rod a Drifloon and then use Artisan or Nest Ball to instantly summon that Pokemon onto the board and then start attacking with that with Gardevoir EX's help for the energy acceleration. And in terms of energy, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 copies of Psychic Energy. Now, although Gardevoir EX isn't one of the best decks in the game anymore, it is still amongst the top 10, or at least a respectable deck that you can't underestimate. It did get hit pretty hard with rotation, losing cards like Zacian V, Mew from Celebrations, along with the Shining Arcana Gardevoir. That was one of the best attackers for that deck. Combining that with Reversal Energy was very strong, along with Counter Catcher as well. But Gardevoir EX is still very strong, and in the hands of the right player, you can go very, very far with it. And if you guys want to play the best version of Gardevoir EX that I could find online, here's a look at a deck list that is insanely good. Take a look at that Gardevoir list. I'd recommend playing that if you can upgrade this deck into that. I'd go for it. Gardevoir is one of those decks that takes a lot of practice to get good with. It is a deck that is heavily criticized by players like myself because a lot of the players who play this deck play very slow. With that said, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below, comment for the giveaway, what you're going to do with this deck if you end up winning it. Give it to a friend, keep it for yourself, use the deck, whatever you want. Let me know in the comments down below. And you can click on screen to watch a tournament vlog if you want to see what it's like going to a Pokemon regional tournament or some other video that YouTube recommends. Alright, I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.